Go.
Yeah, so my background, I started off in golf growing up as a kid. Obviously played pretty good at sports while I was growing up, and then transitioned to, when I left school, we did electronics engineering. And then how I got into Focus Band was an interesting journey. We started off in golf. I was coaching some players, and we started off with 3D sensors on the body actually. So we were tracking their technique and their physical training with inertia sensors on the body. Because we had that, we got access to some of the best golfers in Australia that were coming to us. This was on the Gold Coast. And so a couple of the players actually made it to the Japan tour. So I went up there and I was coaching them up there as well. And what we realised, they had their great technique. Physically, they were in great shape. All the strategies and tactics we had sorted out. Nutrition, sleep, they were even spiritual. We had all the other elements lined up. But what was happening was when they went from the practice rounds to the tournament rounds, it was chalk and cheese. They weren't performing to their best. So I said, we need to be able to measure what's happening inside their brain while they're actually on the golf course. So I came back to Australia. My dad and I are both electronics engineers originally. So we started looking at EEG. We had started on HRV actually. We had started working heart rate variability stuff, but it wasn't fast enough for what we needed. We needed to see what was happening up at the actual source of the problem. So we started looking for EEG products. There was a couple of them out there. Nothing really did what we needed, so we started building our own. And one of the big restrictions with EEG is noise artifacts. So that was the first thing that we wanted to be able to get rid of, was the artifacts, and that's what we were able to do. And that sort of set us in action there. Once we worked out how to get that going, we started to build a couple of our own algorithms. One is called Mushin, which is like the ideal brain performance state. Mushin is a Japanese word. It means mind of no mind, or mind of no mindedness is the other way you can say it. We did that one, and we came up with one called Quiet Eye. Quiet Eye is really interesting as well. So that's your ideal eye performance state. So when you get both of those two together, Mushin and Quiet Eye, throughout a routine, that's when you get peak performance. What it enabled us to do was, obviously we did it in the golf routine to begin with. We were able to map or score the process, which had never been done before, because we usually struggled with artifacts. Now we could do it out on the range, or we could do it actually on the golf course. They could wear it while they were actually on the golf course. Obviously we started, this is almost 10 years ago, with laptops, but it's gone, obviously we've gone to the mobile device, made it a lot easier. Yeah, that ability for us to measure the mental process, we could actually, we could measure it against result. That was the first time we could say, if you do this process this way, it influences the result. And that's what we started to do. We started to get buy-in from the players. They could see that if they did it this way, they hold more pucks, they hit more fairways. Obviously, just got better and better. So along the way, we ended up going to the US, started working with some of the best golfers in the world. We got really lucky. Started working with Jason Day. That was from 2013 to 2015. So he went from 37th in the world to #1. And then Justin Rose has also done that from 2016 to 2018. He went from 7th to #1 over that period. But yeah, two golfers utilising that blueprint, we call it, which shows you step by step. There's 4 phases that we came up with. And what we realised is that blueprint applies to any activity. So we started in sport, but realised that we can apply that to the corporate setting. So that's what we're doing at the moment. We're bridging into the corporate setting. That's called FlowX. And it's pretty cool. A lot of the drills that we did in golf cross over exactly in the corporate environment. And we've started some trials just before COVID. We started some pilot studies, and we were able to increase flow 20 to 27% within one day. So yeah, some of those stats they say if we can increase it 20%, you can double productivity. So we're always looking at that to see, we've got objective data now. We can say when you do this, and we're applying that with Pomodoro method. So we're doing 25-minute sprints, and the day is, we broke it up into 4 25-minute sprints. Step 1 is just a baseline. You work how you normally work. The beauty is you can work in your normal activities. We don't interfere with your day much. There's probably about 15-20 minutes where we interrupt you, but the rest of it is really good. So we do a baseline in the morning at the start, 25 minutes, do a questionnaire to get the context of what you're doing, have a break, and then we do step 2 is introducing flow audio feedback. When you're in flow, you'll get feedback in your ears. Step 3, we start to introduce flow exercises. So we introduce a 5-minute flow exercise, and then you go back into your task. And then step 4 is coherence exercises. So we apply that. That's a 3 or 4 hour session from like 9 to 1 o'clock. And that gives us a baseline where you're at. So we can give your company, like a yardstick of where your company's at relative to flow and coherence, getting into that optimal being state. We do that twice, and we've started to build out a whole platform off the back of that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is so incredible. I can see so much potential for this. Can you also tell us how, when you were with Nathan those few weeks ago, how you brought the Healy into that and how you played with that a little?
So it was more of an experiment that I wanted to trial, because with Healy, I'm all about biofeedback. I'm all about making sure that what I'm trying, there is actually evidence of effects. So as we were playing with the Healy, we thought that we, get the focus band on and have a look and see what's happening in your brain. So as we were doing that, one of the big things is that Kim from Positive Prime, she's the founder of Positive Prime, and she's a heavy meditator. So she logs thousands of hours worth of meditation. But on on Positive Prime, she's logged on 200-300 hours worth of experiments. So when she got the Healy on, we noticed that her gamma just spiked like there was no tomorrow. And she said that she's never seen this before, and her mid alphas were spiking as well. Okay. And we were thinking, like, why is this the case? So Henry is going to explain, what all that is about, with the gamma.
Okay, great.
Yeah, the gamma is where they sort of say it's the seed of awareness. Yes. It's a connection to also connection to all like the universe. So yeah, it's an exciting band. It's still sort of pioneering stages in gamma. At the other end of the spectrum, the delta and theta, alpha is more researched. We find that delta is associated with deep sleep is the main thing, but it's also there's healing in that. That we've with Havening Group, they use delta as a marker to say, it's a long story on that one, but if you activate delta, you activate calcium channel, which drops off the AMP receptor when you've got trauma. And so that one, theta is associated with higher states of consciousness, high performance as well. So on a really obvious one, when we did racing car drivers in the UK, when they corner really well, they have a theta spike. So during the time you're trying to get all the frequencies to go down, but in certain situations there'll be little spikes that you'll see. So yeah, theta, essentially when they cornered really well, they'd have a little theta burst. If they weren't cornering well, obviously they had a beta spike. Beta is overthinking sort of state. So yeah, that was really interesting. Alpha is sort of, again, it's the fulcrum of the frequencies. Associated with gateway to your belief systems as well. Like when you want to write a belief and recalling, it's your resting state. So that's where a lot of activity happens. There's the next one along is SMR, sensory motor rhythm. So sensory motor rhythms associated with self-stimulation. It's the start of the beta frequencies from 13 up. There's a fair bit of research on that for not Alzheimer's, autism and ADHD. I think they're doing a fair bit of work in there. And then beta frequencies associated with like stress, anxiety, depression, all those mental health sort of issues. Obviously we covered gamma. So that's the spectrum that we cover, 1 to 44 hertz is the band that the spectrum that we cover. And we're interested in the relationships of those frequencies with each other. So we have it's called, so you have thresholds on those frequency bands so that we can set. When they're all set to go below, we call that like a squash protocol. And that's sort of where we say flow is sitting. And then the shape of those frequencies determines if you're coherent or not. So yeah, the order of it determines the type of coherence that you're after for the task that you're trying to achieve.
Unreal.
Yeah.
That's so unreal. And is it in a way that a format that people can easily understand, or is there quite a lot of technical information that people have to understand to be able to use it?
It's up to the user in that regard. Yeah, you can have it as simple as a green and red avatar on the head, or you can go into each band.
Right.
So yeah, we let the user determine which way they want it. A lot of people, obviously, if you're inquisitive, you go straight to the one with all the meters. And that's, everyone sort of ends up there wanting to know into real fine detail what's going on.
And do you actually encourage this to be a daily practice, so it becomes a habit, healthy habit?
Yeah, absolutely. We for the corporate environment, we're saying like a power hour, like get 1 hour in. We're always looking at that. If they can get 1 good hour in, if they can double their productivity in that hour, we're giving people back an hour essentially a day. Over a week that adds up to 5 hours. So all of a sudden they've almost got 1 day back. So that's what we're sort of saying for the corporate sector. For general wellness, people use it in the morning when they wake up, make sure they're in a good state. And then at the end of the day is one of the models that people use. And that can be as short as 6 minutes. So it's usually between 6 to 15 minutes is the sort of go-to.
Perfect. I think for the busy schedules that people run, and what I've just recently did listen to the Surrender Experiment, Michael Singer, and he's been a heavy meditator for a long time, and he even says 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night. You don't have to be doing hours and hours, like the Joe Dispenza thing. Who's got 2, 3, 4 hours and wants to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and that's tricky for a lot of people. So if we can fast track it with Healy and Focus Band and all of that stuff, that's just so exciting.
So an example of that too is every Friday morning at 6:30 in the morning, Troy, our friend Troy, he's the lead of Transform Technology Australasia. He runs a meditation time. So we all jump on, and a lot of them they're heavy meditator, and they drop into a flow, because they've all got their focus bands on. So you can actually see the data of it. So together they can actually drop in deeper than if you were actually doing it by yourself. Wow. So if you were meditating by yourself, you don't get the deep frequency or the depth of your meditation as much as you do it together in a group. So Christine from Cairns, she's been meditating for 50 years, Right. So somebody like her would literally nudge me, who hasn't done as much meditation, and I get really distracted. So it actually helps me to drop in just by the group of us connecting together. And everybody's got their focus bands on, and
fantastic group meditation.
Group flow, right? So that's one of the programs that Focus Band does really well. Okay. So you can actually visually see it. That say so right now, you can actually have up to how many?
We do up to 12 at the moment. It can grow as much as we need, but 12 fits on the screen.
12 breathing.
12 users at once.
Oh, 12 users.
12 people with focus bands. And we can do a group flow. So when we're in in the same frequency together. Obviously turns on the object on the screen and audio feedback. That's really excites me. The group flow is I think is really the future of the wellness trajectory that we're all on.
I agree. Totally.
And
it's super exciting.
An example of corporate training. So imagine you have a high performance team, you know, whether it's a real estate team or a management consultant team, and one of the team member doesn't perform as well as the others. So in a group flow, you can actually see, and the thing is, it's not about isolating him out, it's actually bringing him in onto the group flow. So, you know, he might be, you know, having a bad time or whatever, but by him visually seeing everybody, and then you can see that he's dropping off, it nudges him to come back into the band. And once you're in a particular wavelength, you get dopamine and you get, you know, all the chemicals released. So in a way, you do it long enough, and your body, your mind, the way that you are, your breathing actually triggers that back because you can visually see it. Whereas if we were just to sit around and try to meditate together, we don't know. You know, we really don't know. So we see that as the future of group, high performance group training as well.
Awesome. Because you're getting that coherence, right? That oscillating coherence, they come into it because other people are in coherence.
I think Lynn McTaggart is the one in the States with the Power of 8.
The Power of 8.
We've sort of been following.
I had my own Power of 8 group.
Oh, brilliant. I did I'll show you after this. There's the workshop we did in London last year. There was 12 of us around in a circle. And it was really cool to see it all come together.
This is so exciting.
Cool.
Pause.
Is there any questions you want to ask?
Vivian, you jump in because I'm like going for it. It's like Henry won't be able to stop with I won't be able to stop with the questions.